A lot of honors. I have to admit, I feel a bit nervous coming back onto a stage after 2 years. I haven't given a talk in a very long time, but I'm super excited to be here, excited and humbled. I heard yesterday that some people were not sure I was going to show up because I've been traveling across Africa for the past couple of weeks, so I'm freshly back from Nairobi and from Lagos, and that's something I'm going to talk a little bit in this keynote. But really, it's a pleasure to be back in front of you all. I'm Kate. I'm the head of Global Developer Relations and Emerging Areas at NVIDIA. That's my day job. And in my free time, I'm also the chair of tinyML for Good committee. And really, I've seen this community from its inception back in 2018 and how it's grown today. And as I was thinking about what I could talk about for 45 minutes today, it's actually looking back at where we started, where we are now, and really the impact that our community and our technology has had onto the world. So let's get started. The original vision of tinyML was really simple. In 2018, it was a tiny dream which says, we see a new world with trillions of intelligent devices enabled by tinyML technologies that can sense, analyze, and autonomously act together. And I can still remember Pete Warden in 2018 at Google standing on a stage and talking to everybody about how we could enable some portion of vision machine learning on a Cortex-M4. And at the time, everybody was absolutely amazed. But now, looking at how far our technology has gone, and looking at the three different workloads that we can enable, vision, voice, and sensing, it's just been really, really amazing. And it started actually with very tiny dreams. So tiny dreams with a couple of partners. Forgive me if I forgot a couple of them. But really those partners getting together and trying to make this vision a reality. And since then, actually a lot has happened. The first thing that happened is hardware. There was the first tinyML dedicated hardware research that was published last year. And this research forecasted that in 2022, this would be the year of proliferation of tinyML. And I don't think they were wrong, because there has been a lot of announcements already this year and a lot of progress in the community already this year. And this research also forecasted that by this time we would be selling 1.2 billion devices that will be processing tinyML and solving challenges such as on-device anomaly detection, condition monitoring, and predictive maintenance. But there has been a lot of other tinyML hardware advancements. Rixon, which is a startup based in China and in Switzerland, has released the neuromorphic engineering chip that actually bring the neural perception computing theory into an analog pre-processing and in-memory computing devices chip. Arduino and Raspberry Pi brought tinyML to millions of developers with the Arduino tinyML developer kit and the Raspberry Pi Pico. We also saw a lot of advancements in software. Our friends at Newton AI or Kixo or even Edge Impulse with their Eon Tuner, which pairs the best set of feature extraction algorithm with the best machine learning models. But Seed Studio, who also released a simple drag and drop tool where anyone can actually now build tinyML pipelines, starting from the data collection all the way to the model development. And our friends at ARM released something that's kind of a mix of hardware and software, where now with the ARM virtual hardware, which is an evolution of a modeling technology, you can deliver accurate models of ARM-based SoC, which allows you to prototype both your hardware and your software before the chip is actually available and accelerate your time to market. And this brings me to where we are now. And I think there was not enough space on this slide to actually fit all the logos of the partners of tinyML, but that shows how big our community has grown for the past 4 years, and that we're not so tiny anymore. I couldn't finish this roundup without mentioning the advancement in research. tinyML research in 2018 was just a couple of papers published. I think we had probably 4 or 5. tinyML in 2021 was over 35 research papers produced. And there are a couple that will be here today that you will be able to see in the poster area. And the good thing is that the success stories have been piling up. Starting with our friends at Gimpulse. I spoke to Evgeny yesterday, and he was remembering 4 years ago when him and Zach sat at the dinner table and were talking about how Evgeny would create a foundation and how Zach will create his next startup. And here is at Gimpulse 2 years later. A look where there has been an amazing growth for them in 2 years. They went from 0 to hero, how Alessandro likes to put it. And they've been boasting a community of over 40,000 developers all over the world, with close to 70,000 projects that are being done on their technology. They recently closed their Series B in December, bringing the total amount raised in less than 2 years to $54 million, which is pretty impressive. But their technology doesn't stop here. The success story doesn't stop here. In addition to the community, Gimpulse has been able to enable many products to improve their tiny machine learning applications, starting with the Oura Ring that everybody knows, this consumer products that focuses on improving sleep performance for their users, but also moving to IMAS, which has developed a RAM1, it's a power grid monitoring system that's designed to last up to 20 years in the field. But there have been also a lot of for good application. Many community developers across many countries have been running workshops on tinyML using Gimpulse SDKs. And many community members have been trying to solve real-world challenges using this platform, such as forest fires or malaria mosquito detector, which is a use case in Kenya, I believe. They're not the only one. Our friends at Cartesium were acquired by ST last year, just like our friends at Babel Labs were acquired by Cisco last year. And as I was running that keynote preparation yesterday, that news came out of Cynthian raising $55 billion to accelerate growth, which I think they are in the room today as well. But that's not it. We also ran our first tinyML Vision Challenge, which saw close to 500 submissions from developers all over the world, building vision-based workloads to solve real challenges. And our ecosystem has grown beyond tech. Evgeny mentioned that we are now boasting a community of close to 8,000 developers worldwide, but we have chapters in 36 countries, and even in Africa, whether it's in Nigeria, whether it's in Morocco. I think Ajar, the head of tinyML chapter in Morocco, is in the room today, but also in Kenya, in Ghana, and all over the world, including in Latin America as well. This has really allowed developers to solve challenges which were around them and put the goods in tinyML. Our education has taken many forms. There have been books published on tinyML. The most recent one is the tinyML cookbook that was published by John Marco Yodis. And as Evgeny mentioned, 70,000 students have enrolled in a tinyML Harvard University edX course. And now getting to the myth. We actually put the for good in tinyML. But what does it actually mean? It means that we started to build on our vision. So I mentioned the tiny vision that we had in 2018, but putting for good in this vision meant that we were using those trillions of intelligent devices to improve the way billions of people live and interact with each other and contribute to achieving the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Something that we often forget as technologists is that the tech we are building is here to enable. It's not an end. It's a mean to an end. And I really want to emphasize on the enabling part. And with a lot of the hype, that's going on around our technology and all the advancements that we're making every day, we tend to forget about it. But the core reason why we're here today and why we're doing this is to make people's life better. I often say that there are two driving forces behind tinyML, which makes it the absolute sweet spot for social innovation applications: our technology and our ecosystem. On one side, a combination of low power, easy to use, low cost devices, but on the other side, a combination of the industry, research, and developers that are building applications. And for me, this equals more mind, more innovation, more people innovation, solving more complex challenges. And this constitutes the amazing sweet spot for tech, for social good, but also to solve, and more particularly to solve the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So as we started with tinyML for good, we wanted to focus, we knew that we couldn't boil the ocean, so we wanted to focus on 3 specific goals. The goal 4, which is education and STEM for everyone. Goal number 3, which is good health and well-being. And goal number 13, 14, 15 combined, which I would group under climate change and environmental sustainability. And we did so in partnership with many organizations, starting from the UN Foundation Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data, UNICEF, and the United Nations Foundation. To describe what we've been doing, I would like to show you a video of Claire Melamed, who is the CEO of the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data.
Greetings to the attendees and the speakers at the tinyML for Good conference. My name is Claire Melamed, and I'm the CEO of the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data. Through our 300 partner organizations from all sectors and all parts of the world, we help deliver better data, better decisions, and in the end, better lives. I'm the CEO of an organization which is focused on data for social impact. And so perhaps I shouldn't admit that I do find a lot of the global conversation on AI, on the Internet of Things, and the 4th Industrial Revolution sometimes somewhat vague and a little bit devoid of content. But as we strive for the United Nations global goals of fighting climate change, clean water for all, and getting all girls an education, we are concerned with what is possible for the vast majority of humans on the planet. Many of them sadly don't exist in government records or have any digital footprint at all, meaning they miss out on key social services. As an international community of technologists, we can do more to prevent people from getting left behind. The pandemic has shown us that until all of us are safe, none of us are. My organisation is working with the UN to broker partnerships with technology companies that can help African governments to apply the world's best solutions to the world's worst problems. That is how we came to work closely with NVIDIA Corporation and today's host, the tinyML Foundation. We've worked with satellite data and Earth observation specialists, including NASA, to create open data cubes and algorithms that monitor drought, flooding, crop yields, and illegal mining. The low and middle income countries that we work with are grappling with the worst impacts of a climate crisis that they played no part in creating. Our Data for Now initiative focuses on closing data lags and gaps so that governments in Africa, Asia, and Latin America can have actionable information on poverty mapping, flood risks, food security, and more. And our partnership with NVIDIA aims at strengthening resilience and capacity for the public data systems through provision of technology infrastructure and data science capacity in Africa. People should not be deprived of an education, food, or emergency support because those who would help them lack the data to take action to do so. Despite the sometimes off-putting technical language, fundamentally AI and the Internet of Things are technologies made by humans and for humans. But if 99 out of 100 of the decision makers are situated in a few rich countries, then we can't hope to harness the true potential of those technologies to save lives in every country in the world. There's a danger that digital colonialism further oppresses the have-nots in an already unequal world. We want technology to be an equalising force and not one that increases the inequalities in our system. That's why your focus on machine learning in low-resource settings is so invaluable. The open secret of artificial intelligence is that it's nothing without the natural intelligence of people with common sense and lived experience. Peer learning among this community of researchers, of engineers, and sector specialists will open up how tinyML can support the Sustainable Development Goals in Zanzibar, in Malawi, in Paraguay, in Fiji, and the rest of the world. We stand ready to work with you to help these new approaches be adapted locally. I'll end up by wishing you a productive and an inspiring day. We look forward to learning more about this exciting frontier as it applies to conservation, education, healthcare, and many other areas. Thank you.
So in our address, Claire mentioned that we need to pair up the world's best solutions with the world's worst problems. And this is why this collaboration in our industry is very key and important. This is exactly what we're trying to achieve as a tinyML for Good committee. And I would go even one step further. I would say that we are pairing the world's worst problems with the best people to build the best solutions. And that's why we're here. And this is not a tops-down approach. It has to be a collaborative approach that's driven by the community, the public, and the private sectors. Again, it's more mind, more people to solve the world's most complex challenges. And our community has really put this to work, especially during tough times. We all know that the COVID-19 pandemic has completely changed the way we all work, interact with each other. And the most vulnerable communities were the most impacted by this pandemic. For millions of young kids across the world, education is something that they see as an escape. It's something that they see where they can go and sit with each other in classes, learn, get away from any of the vulnerable settings that are from which they are victims every day. And really, when the pandemic hit, 68 million students were all of a sudden completely, their whole world was all of a sudden completely wrecked, and they had to readapt to a different way to learn. Students in Africa, and especially in remote areas, were the most impacted, where over 500,000 schools had to close. And in countries where you don't have the same access to technology that we do here, where you don't have laptops, where mobile phones are sometimes feature phones, they had to find a way to carry on education. And this is what happened. This is how the project Makini was born. The tinyML chapter in Kenya got together to help students in remote areas across the country to keep a contact with the school and continue to further their education even without access to regular power, electricity, and laptops. So let's look at what Project Makini has done for the students for the young students in Kenya.
Hello, Makini.
How can I help?
You can teach me about osmosis.
Okay. This is what I have on osmosis. Osmosis is the spontaneous net movement of solvent molecules through a selectively permeable.
So Project Makini is powered by an NVIDIA Jetson and a Cortex M4, and was really designed to run machine learning at the edge in low power envelope, so everything tinyML. It's using a word detection functionality, and it's ensuring that the device is always in sleep mode when not in use. It has been defined as an offline search engine where students can prompt keywords and the device actually answers and provide them information, but also allows students to assess themselves. So in a setting where they didn't have access to regular education, Project Makini has helped them further and carry on school while being able to assess themselves and progress slowly. The project actually went on to becoming the world finalist in the education category at the Microsoft Imaging Cup 2021 competition. And that's something that the tinyML community and the tinyML chapters have enabled during the pandemic. Another application that I wanted to mention today is IBs. IBs is also a Kenyan application. And during the pandemic, again, a lot of vulnerable populations in the country have lost their jobs. Women in Kenya turned to beehive culture to be able to make an additional income. And Jacqueline, one of the tinyML Kenya chapter member, decided to create a beehive monitoring system that could help women understand the state and the health of their beehives, but also prevent hive heist, which has been which has been highly rampant in some of the counties in the country. Let's listen from Jacqueline what beehives is enabling these women to do in the country.
Hi, my name is Jacqueline Tum and I'm a co-organizer of tinyML Kenya. So in an aim to save bees from the face of extinction and to enable women in rural semi-arid areas to get value for beekeeping by solving some of the main challenges they face, we built a tinyML-powered beehive monitoring device that lets these beekeepers monitor the health of their beehives in real time and on their phone. So this is a low-cost, low-power device that can work well in areas with poor internet connectivity, thanks to the current expansion of low-power wide area networks such as LoRa and Sigfox in the region. As a developer, I believe there is a gap between the existing challenges and knowing the right tools and technologies to use to solve some of these challenges. With tinyML, we unlock new possibilities to solving these main challenges of our time that a few years ago seemed impossible, and in a cost-effective way. With some of these challenges ranging from agriculture, health and sanitation, and the rapidly accelerating climate change, I believe we can apply machine learning at the edge. So we should empower more developers to leverage this technology and innovate solutions that aim at solving problems in Africa, one innovative idea at a time. Thank you.
Someone told me yesterday there is no money in for good, and that maybe when we only do good, if we were only doing good, we would not be able to sell as many chips that we are doing today. What I want to highlight is that although this project was created in Kenya to help monitor beehives culture, Kenya is not one of the top countries where beehives are being cultured. US is in the top 10, India is in the top 10. So imagine reverse engineering this solution and deploying it in countries where there is more capital flowing, but in countries such as US. And maybe at this point we'll get to having money in for goods. The face of tinyML champions has also changed. I was really fortunate to be able to go and meet Clinton, who is the creator of the tinyML chapter in Kenya, and has been enabling his community to use our technology. He's now doing an internship at Edge Impulse, which I'll probably have to fight with Zach as to who is going to get to hire him full-time first. But I wanted you to hear about what the impact of tinyML on him and his community, and get you a little bit inspired, because as we're sitting here in this room, as we are always here in the US, we don't see how technology is being used, and we don't see the impact that our technology has on people's lives. And Clinton is an amazing example of the way this room, the people in this room, have been able to enable young talent across the world, especially in Africa.
Hi, my name is Clinton Odor. I'm the lead tinyML Kenya, as well as a current intern at Edge Impulse. I'll say my first experience with EdgeML was like 3 years ago, when me and my colleagues were trying to detect the different species of wild animals using a thermal camera, a Raspberry Pi 3, and with the help of acceleration of an Intel Mobidius neural compute stick, all running on a power bank. We had this idea that if we could detect elephants early enough before crossing the wildlife protected areas, we could prevent unnecessary human-wildlife conflicts, which are usually very high in some parts of the country. We hoped that our device could last for several weeks once deployed in savannah without replacing the battery. Unfortunately, that was never the case. In fact, when we did a small test at our local conservancy, our device barely lasted for 8 hours. Of course, it was very embarrassing because we were working very closely with the chief scientist at the Kenya Wildlife Service, which is an organization that manages over 200 wildlife conservancies in the country, and he had promised us a more testing platform if our device could work as expected. In fact, in our previous conversation, we had agreed that a battery life of between 6 months to 12 months will be ideal for the task. So when we thought that it was an end to the project, what we did is that we submitted the project to a contest called the Microsoft Imagine Cup, and the project emerged as a runner-up in the entire EMEA region. And all that was just by the fact that we had an AGI component in the project, which was very cool. Later on, I came across a tinyML book written by Pete and Dan that was demonstrating how to train, optimize, and deploy a very tiny person detection model on a very resource-constrained hardware. I got interested in it since it was just almost the same problem that we were trying to solve before. After some few more months of learning and experimenting with tinyML, I realized that this technology presented like a whole big opportunity in solving some of the real life problems that we face today. And it was even a big plus for areas with poor internet connectivity. These devices could run literally on less than 1 milliwatt of power, which was really cool. By then also, IoT networks such as LoRa and Sigfox were really advancing in the country, with Sigfox having almost a coverage of more than 80%. So I decided to give it a shot by first of all starting with a small tinyML community at my university. And in our first event on Introduction to tinyML using EdgeImpulse, we got more than 40 attendees. After a few more events, we decided to take it nationally, and that's how tinyML Kenya was born. We started with online meetups to accommodate everyone in the country, and mostly focused on EdgeImpulse, so it was a very easy tool for developers to get started with, and at least they could train and at least test the model on their phones just to appreciate the technology, even though most of these tinyML hardwares weren't yet available in the country. So after some time, I joined the EdgeImpulse Ambassador Program, and EdgeImpulse sent me a box full of different tinyML hardware to play around with and also build projects of which I could also use to conduct like a hands-on session with other developers. Since starting the chapter last year, we now have more than 260 members, and we have held more than 20 meetups, both online and physical. We have also had the chance of inviting some of the leaders in tinyML, such as Peter Ader and Janjong Boom, to come speak to our developers. Other programs such as the NVIDIA Emerging Chapters has also been really beneficial to our community, especially through the hardware grants where they provided our developers with some Jetson devices. We also thank the consultative talks held between Peter Ader, the team from ARM with our local electronics hardware shops to bring tinyML hardware close to the developers. Today, our developers can easily get their Raspberry Pi, Picos, and even the Arduino Nano 33BL license in the country locally without having to ship from abroad, which usually took a lot of time and also had a lot of customs associated with it. We have also seen some amazing tinyML applications from our developers, ranging from making education accessible to all, bees conservation, precision livestock keeping, and even healthcare and well-being by detecting malaria spreading Anopheles mosquitoes. As you can see, this is just a tip of the iceberg of some of the real-life problems we can solve with tinyML today. And this is just a start. The technology is now here with us, and tinyML hardware is also continuing to become smaller and cheaper each day, with more tools emerging as well. In fact, in the near future, with more research and advancements in the field, the biggest challenge that we're going to have is to think of specific real-life problems to solve using tinyML, rather than to think of the technical complexities involved in building the solutions, which is surely a turn-off to some developers. I can't wait to see where tinyML is going to take us in the next few years. Thank you.
Pretty inspiring, right? If you think about the impact that Clinton starting this small tinyML chapter last year at Keynote University, which is not even in the capital of Kenya in Nairobi, which is outside, had on the community, the ecosystem, and the 3 startups that this has enabled to create, it's really inspiring. It's not the nature of our technology that makes it be suitable for good. It's actually the nature of the challenges that we're trying to solve. And to be frank, I think that now it's completely embedded in our DNA as tinyML community. Africa is doing for good, not because it's for good, but because of the nature of the challenges, again, that they are trying to solve. If the #1 challenge is kids' access to education, Clinton is going to go and enable that. If the #1 challenge is beehive culture and monitoring, Jacqueline is going to go and enable that. Again, what if those applications are reverse engineered and brought into our countries, deployed into places such as here, such as India, such as China, where those problems are also valid? Project Makini for school education access can be used beyond Kenya. Applications in agri-tech can be scaled outside of the continent. Food shortage is climate change and food shortage are global issues, not just African issues. So think about these solutions being deployed here. And as we kick this off today, as I leave this stage, I really want you to think about how the tech you are building can be used to enable and empower people like Jacqueline and Clinton. And how it's really our duty as technologists to make sure that these kids have access to our technology, whether it's providing them with hardware, whether it's bringing them the tools that they need, giving them access, could be for free or not, but making it easy for them to be able to procure those tools. And by the way, I'm going back to Nairobi on Friday, so if anyone wants to donate to contribute some hardware, I'll be glad to take it in my suitcase with me and bring it to Clinton and Jacqueline. I would love to open a center of excellence at Keynote University, not something branded, but something where all the students and the chapters across Kenya can go conglomerate and work on our technology. So if you want to contribute, find me during the conference and we can definitely talk. And what I want to leave you with is that if we manage to put all this in motion, we'll see many more Clintons popping up across the world. And that's going to enable the next generation of technologists, just like us, not just to build this technology, but also to solve some of the world's most complex challenges. I want to thank you and leave you with a quote from a Ghanaian author, which goes, "Alone, I am nothing. I have nothing. We have power, but we will never know it. We will never see it work unless we come together and make it work." And I hope tinyML Summit is a place where we come together and make it work, but also open the gates and pave the way for the next generation of technologists across the world. Thank you.
It's pretty amazing, really putting the human side on things. I'm kind of speechless, the human impact that this kind of technology can have.
And we are very thankful for our sponsors. The premier sponsor this year is Edge and Pulse. And then executive sponsors are ARM, DeepLight, Qualcomm, and Syntiant. Platinum sponsor, Analog Devices, BrainChip, Infineon, Clickertech, Latent AI, NXP, Reality AI, Renaissance, Sony Semiconductor, and Synaptics. Really very diverse company, great companies who are really driving tinyML forward. And gold sponsors for the Hub, Micro AI, Prophecy, Seed Studio, SenseML, ST Microelectronics, SynSense, XMOS. And we have a list of civil sponsors: Avion Devices, Aspinity, Seva, EMSA, Greenwave Technologies, Grovity, Hymex, HOTG, Imagimob, ITMIS, Lattice, Nota, OmniML, Pixart, Plumerai, Kixo, Rachner, Rixen, SAP, StreamAnalyze, Texel, and Google. So we are very thankful for their support, and more importantly, for them being part of this community and driving it forward.